It is playoff time with the PFL. This Friday night from San Antonio, Texas, we have got the playoffs for the featherweights and the light heavyweights. Your playoff matchups in the featherweight division, you've got the number 1 seeded Bubba Jenkins taking on Jesus Pinedo. Then you got the number 2 seed in Gabriel Braga taking on the number 5 seed in Chris Wade. Also, we've got the light heavyweight division. We've got the number 1 seed in Josh Silveira taking on the 4th seed in Flores. And then also Martin Hamlet, who's the number 2 seed, will be taking on the number 3 seed in Kasanganay. The final 4 fights in this card are playoff fights, and we've got some undercard fights as well. And a former Bellator fighter in Keone Diggs making his PFL debut against Elvin Espinoza also on the main card. So 10 fights coming for the PFL this Friday night from San Antonio, Texas. And folks, if you haven't yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more MMA here on the channel. Yesterday, we just posted our UFC predictions with Corey Santagan and Rob Font in the main event. And then, of course, we'll have PFL coming at you next week and the week after for all 3 of the playoff cards before the championship fights coming up, I believe, in around November. So stay tuned here on the channel for more MMA. Let's get into the start of this card. We will start here with our opener in Billy Elekana taking on Chuck Campbell. Some of these undercard fights, again, it's just, there's not much to really talk about considering some of these guys are not, they're not high-level fighters. They're, up-and-coming fighters who the PFL is marked as prospects, but we've got, it's not like the original PFL cards at the regular season where you're going to have 10, fights that mean something for points, but we've got a fight here between Billy and Chuck Campbell. Going to take Elekana to win this fight. We've got him to win this one by decision. Chuck Campbell's a guy who's coming off a loss in his last fight to Modestas Bukauskas for the Cage Warriors Light Heavyweight Championship. Obviously, Bukauskas since then has made his way back to the UFC, and he's beat Tyson Pedro and Zach Poundgut. It's a guy that probably shouldn't have been cut in the first place from the UFC, but Bukauskas again goes in there in his last fight and beats Chuck Campbell. It was a fight that, again, Bukauskas was likely going to win. It was the vacant championship fight. They were doing their whole Europe versus America thing, and Campbell was the American fighter in the main event. Bukauskas was a pretty decent favorite. He ends up going on to win that fight. Further for Campbell, won one fight in Cage Warriors, winning a fight by knockout in the first round, then won one fight in Uriah Faber's A1 Combat, then won 2 before that in Bellator before dropping one to Tyree Fortune by split decision. He's taking a guy here in Billy Elekana who is coming off a win on the Challenger Series in his last fight, winning a fight by unanimous decision. His only loss being an LFA loss back in 2022 is a fight that he's a pretty big favorite in, but he lost. Before that, 2 straight wins in LFA. I think Elekana as a whole is the better fighter, and I think he's going to go out there and win. I got him to take this one by unanimous decision. Next up, we have got the return of Chelsea Hackett. She returns against Kai Bennett. For Hackett, you might remember the name from the Contender Series. She got a fight against one Victoria Leonardo where she lost. It was a fight that Hackett was a pretty big favorite in. She was at minus 300. She's a kickboxer coming in from Australia. The UFC seemed pretty high on her because she was only 20 years old when she went out and when she fought that fighter. She was 21. She's still only 23. She has not fought since that Contender Series loss. Now she gets a shot in the PFL. She was booked against Desiree Yanez, who we're going to see later on in this card. But fight doesn't happen. It's a fight against Yanez that she probably would have lost. So she now gets Kai Bennett. For Hackett, it was kind of made apparent in her fight against Victoria Leonardo is that she had no ground game. She was not able to do anything on the ground against Leonardo. Leonardo eventually finishes her in the second round. It's not like Victoria Leonardo is the best UFC fighter. Leonardo is 1-3 in the promotion, coming off her last fight where she got knocked out in the first round by Natalia Silva. I think in this fight with Hackett and Bennett, obviously Chelsea Hackett's going to be the favorite. She's going to try to keep this fight standing, and she should be able to win. Her opponent is not very great. Kai Bennett's a fighter who is 3-2. She split her first 4 fights. She's coming off a win in Invicta in her last fight, though, against a fighter who was 2-2. Given Kai Bennett was 2-2 as well, this seems like one-way traffic. As long as Chelsea Hackett's able to keep this fight in the feet, she should be able to win. Kai Bennett does have a submission win back in Bellator in 2018 on Bellator 195, so would be a little bit concerned. Don't put money on Chelsea Hackett. You don't know about her ground game. It's completely unproven. I still think Chelsea Hackett wins, though, by unanimous decision. Our next fight comes here with the former UFC fighter Anthony Ivy. He'll be taking on Carson Hardman. For Anthony Ivy, cut by the UFC and dropped his first 3 fights after being cut by the promotion. So he goes into the UFC, loses to Christian Aguilera by knockout in the first round, then loses to Brian Barberena by unanimous decision, and then drops 3 straight fights in Fury FC and then comes back, wins a fight in Fury, then wins one XKO, and wins a fight in his last fight in PCS, a promotion in Houston, Texas, where one Juan Adams was apparently on the card, and he lost. Wow, okay, he lost to Shelton Graves. Anyway, Ivy now gets a shot in the PFL, but that 5-fight losing streak does not look great, especially the latter 3, all being in Fury FC. Now, when you look at those losses, one of the guys ended up losing to Michael Morales on the Contender Series. One of them ended up being Basil Hafez, of course, the guy who gave Madalena a tough run in the UFC. And the other one ended up being Joel Bauman, who I believe is this the guy who was the dog collar? I think this is the BDSM guy. Just, you gotta look it up. I'm pretty sure it's this guy. Yeah, I believe, he's the champion over there, I think. Right? Is he not? Maybe he's not the champion. I don't know. This guy's kind of odd. Anyways, this guy wears like the weird dog collar. Yeah, it just looks like a kinky sex thing, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, Ivy taking on Carson Hardman in this one. I'm gonna actually take Carson Hardman. Now this is why. I'm taking Hardman to win by second round TKO. Because you look at what Hardman's able to do recently, he's been winning a lot in Fierce FC over in Utah. I believe that promotion's kind of set in. Again, Hardman hasn't really fought anybody, but Anthony Ivy went on a huge losing streak as well. I know he's been winning, but he's been beating guys who are not on his level. So it's really just a toss-up fight. I think someone likely gets knocked out because both these guys are looking to strike and both these guys are looking to go at it on the feet. However, I think Carson Hardman's the better fighter. I think he wins this fight by second round knockout, going with Hardman to take the victory. Next up, we have got a fight, not that one yet. We've got Desiree Yanez taking on Lisa Mauldin. Yanez is a pretty big favorite. She won her contract on the Challenger Series in her last fight. She picked up a win by unanimous decision over there early in 2023. Now, for Yanez, this is a fighter who fought in Bellator twice. She lost back-to-back fights over there. She dropped one to Veda Ortega. She dropped one to Bruna Ellen. She fought on Combate back in 2019. That was her big 3-fight losing streak. However, she definitely won that Combate fight against Melissa Martinez. That was highway robbery, that fight. That was on the undercard to Tito Ortiz and Alberto Del Patron. Yep. Anyways, for Yanez, she's won back-to-back fights. That's my fault. She won back-to-back fights since losing 2 straight in Bellator. She's taking on Lisa Mauldin here, who Mauldin's 5-3. She did win the Contender Series as well, actually picking up a pretty big win over a pretty sizable favorite in Helen Peralta. She's a plus 320 dog against Peralta, who was actually the #1 seed over on The Ultimate Fighter for the UFC. She came back after the UFC. She lost to Poliana Botello. I don't know what's happening with Peralta now after losing that fight where she's a pretty big favorite in. Mauldin also holds a win over Caitlin Neal. Neal, a fighter, also has been, I believe, signed to the PFL as well. She fought in the Ultimate Fighter. Neal picked up a win in her last fight with the PFL. She's going to get a shot next week, actually, with the PFL playoff card as well. Mauldin's fought a lot of fighters. She also fought Sam Hughes back in 2020. However, Yanez is the way better fighter in this one. Desiree Yanez has got way better wrestling. All around, she's a way better fighter. Desiree Yanez is going to win. There's a reason, again, why she got the contract in the first place. I think Mauldin will be a tough ask for her, but I still think that Yanez is able to win. I'm going to take her to win by unanimous decision. Next up, we've got a pretty fun fight here. Ending the prelims, we have got Fad Gene taking on Ali Omar. For Gene, winning the contract in his last fight, only 25 years old, picked up a big win by unanimous decision. It was on I believe it was the first week or the second week of the PFL Challenger Series. The votes were split, but of course the PFL decided to go with Thad Gene to win the contract for a good reason. This guy is fun to watch. Got really good striking games. Got a lot of power on the feet. We're taking on Ali Omar in this one, and for Omar, went 0-1 now LFA, but that was all the way back in 2019. Since then, he beat Jay Ellis. Yes, the fighter who at the time of fighting Omar was 15-89. He beat him by Americano choke in the first round. Jay Ellis, by the way, now is a whopping 16-108. Last losing a fight on Cage Titans, 58 by rear naked choke in 38 seconds to Jack Congdon. Yeah, but shout out to Jay Ellis. Jay Ellis seems like a pretty cool guy. He just loses all the time. I mean, it was weird because Don Shanis beat him, and Don Shanis was given a shot in the UFC. He did go 0-2, and now is cut by the promotion. But yeah, it's just weird when you see Jay Ellis because you scroll through his record. There's guys you've heard of. I mean, Ali Omar being one, Don Shanis. I can keep scrolling this. I mean, Darius Flowers was booked against him twice. Fight never happened though. If I keep scrolling, I'm probably gonna find someone else as well. I mean, there's just, they kind of just throw guys at Jay Ellis. Zach Otto fought him back in 2016. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Dan Moret fought him. Colby Covington fought him. Gerald Mearshot fought him. Anthony Rocco Martin fought him. I mean, there's guys that have fought Jay Ellis. If you haven't looked through his record, he beat Daniel Strauss long time ago. Shout out to Daniel Strauss. But yeah, he beat Daniel Strauss back in 2009 in Strauss's pro debut. Pat Curran, Anthony Pettis fought Jay Ellis. I mean, this guy's fought everybody. It is actually crazy. He fought Mearshart twice, actually. Like, what are we doing? Anyways, Ali Omar finished Jay Ellis in the first round. That's not going to matter, though, because that Gene's going to win this fight. Gene is the better striker. I think he's got more power stand-up-wise, and I think he's able to win because, again, I like Gene's striking game. We saw it a lot in the the Challenger Series. I think he wasn't able to get the finish in that fight, but I think this one he will be able to get the finish. Give me a Thad Gene to win this fight by second-round knockout. On to the main card. We will start with a fight between the former Bellator fighter here in Keone Diggs. He comes now to the PFL, even though I feel like a lot of Bellator fighters will be coming to the PFL, and I hope next season, this is what I'm hoping for the PFL. If they cannot run Bellator like they run PFL, if they cannot run two at the same time, which I would like them to do, I would like them. This is my main ask for the PFL. Now, the second ask is them to keep Bellator running, or at least just engulf it, and just have the PFL run both. But my ask for the PFL next year, I want them every single weight class. I don't care. You could, because the PFL, if Bellator's gone, you need to be an actual number 2 promotion to the UFC. Strikeforce has run events all over the world. Bellator has run events all over the world. PFL needs to start selling out arenas. And if you have Francis Ngannou, you can start doing that. However, I want them every single weight class, like even the women's ones. Maybe not every single women's weight class, but you need at least 2. You have the women's flyweight fighters, they should have them at women's flyweight. Have Dakota Dechiva come over. You need a competitive PFL weight class in every single weight class. Because, again, if you bring Bellator fighters over, you get them at 125. So you get the Ilima McFarlane's of the world. You get Liz Carmouche. You get those fighters to be in your 125-pound weight class. They're all going to be really competitive. And the other ask, put it at 16. Give me 16 fighters in each weight class. I don't know how that's exactly going to work, but, make it tough. Like, I remember the original PFL seasons, the ones that Abu Smagomedov and Jesse Taylor were in, the one that Felipe Lins won, the one that Sean O'Connell won, right? Like, those were tough seasons. Sadabu C fought in those. Like, if you can bring all these Bellator fighters in, they will be tough 16-man tournaments. I'm just saying I think it'll be exciting. And, if you have Bellator fighters who don't want to fight in this and don't want to fight for the $1 million, they can just go fight regular Bellator like there already is. However, Keone Diggs has made it to PFL before. PFL has actually bought Bellator. Now, I think he's actually going to lose this fight. I think Espinoza is going to win by unanimous decision because Espinoza is really good. This is a guy who has fought 3 times in the PFL so far. He fought twice last year and then fought once on the Challenger Series this year. Actually, no, fought 2021, 2022, now 2023. This will be his second fight, 2023. Just would like to see him a little bit more active. He is 30 years old, so he needs to get going here. I would think Espinoza with a win here, the winner of this fight, they will likely actually call this fight, I think, a win and you're in fight. So the winner of this fight will likely make it to the PFL's. The winner of this fight will likely make it to the PFL's lightweight division next year. Makes sense. And for Keone Diggs, again, this is a guy who's 3-2 in Bellator. He came in, he beat Scotty Howe, beat Derek Campos, lose to Daniel Weichel, lose to Bobby King, and then beats Ricardo Sucias in his last fight. Now he gets Elvin Espinoza. I think it's a tough ask, especially for Keone Diggs, who is 36 years old. Espinoza has shown the capability of winning fights in the feet. He has shown the capability of winning fights on the ground. All around, I think he's the better fighter, and that's why I think Elvin Espinoza punches his ticket to fight in the lightweight division next year for the PFL. Give me him to win this fight by unanimous decision. Okay, on to the playoff fights. Our first fight being Impa Kasanganay and Martin Hamlet. You already see it on the screen. I'm taking Impa Kasanganay to win by second round knockout. This fight is completely, and I mean completely, dependent on if Impa can keep the fight standing, because Martin Hamlet is the better grappler. That is undeniable. But man, if Kasanganay can keep the fight standing, he will likely finish Hamlet. I don't think Hamlet's going to be able to keep the fight. I don't think he's going to be able to keep a competitive fight in the field with Kasanganay. Nor do I think is Kasanganay going to be all that competitive on the ground. Honestly, I think he will be. I think Kasanganay's ground game has gotten a lot better. His takedown defense, honestly, is not that bad. I think Kasanganay is the favorite in this one. He should be for a reason. I know he has fought nothing but cans so far in the PFL. That is fair. Corey Hendricks, however, who Kasanganay beat on the first episode of the PFL season this year, he beat him by unanimous decision. That's great. Martin Hamlet barely beat Corey Hendricks last year in 2022 to punch his ticket onto the 2023 season. That was a split decision. The winner got into the season in 2023. Hamlet barely wins. Kasanganay dominated Corey Hendricks. Now, it was not his best performance because Kasanganay has had 2 better performances in the PFL. The Osama fight was really good where he knocked him out in the first round. The Tim Karen fight got him to the ground, submitted with an arm triangle choke. I mean, Lobo is out there to win. And now, I am kind of a Kasanganay fan. I would say I am an Impa Kasanganay fan. I've been a fan of Impa Kasanganay since he won on the Contender Series against Anthony Adams. Really like the guy. I was really, I like that he was able to go fight Anthony Adams, and then 2 weeks later he fought Maki Patola. I thought that was really cool. Now, he did lose to Joaquin Buckley, but he came back and beat Sasha Planatnikov, dropped the fight to Carlston Harris. Then they cut him. Then he went on to Eagle FC, fought a really tough Russian who was 9-1 at the time, lost by split decision, then beat Jared Gooden by knocking him out in the first round. He was then booked against Marcus Perez, the Joker guy from the UFC. Fight fell through. Kasanganay signs with the PFL, wins 3 fights. Now he's 2 fights away from being a world champion and $1 million richer. I think he beats Hamlet. I think Hamlet's really one-dimensional. Hamlet was not able to finish Sam Key either, and Sam K is a guy who, 0-4 in the PFL, 0-3 in the PFL, guy who was a 50-50 fighter. He's 8-8. Like, I don't think Hamlet's that great. Hamlet has fought cans similar to Kasanganay, Mohim Fakhreddin, and Sam K. Like, he's fought kind of guys who aren't very good, and when you look at his past seasons, sure, he's got to a world championship fight before, but how did he get there? Like, look back at Hamlet's 2021 season. He beats Dan Spahn, he submits him in the second round. Then he loses to Corey Hendricks. Then he beats Cesar Ferreira, but Ferreira had the hamstring injury going into the fight, so he just kind of falls down after 13 seconds so he can get his show money. Then he gets submitted by Shoeface in the first round. Then you go to 2022. He beats Tedros Oskalis. Then he loses to Josh Silveira. I mean, like, I don't think Hamlet's all that great. I think Hamlet's kind of just ran into the right guys. I think he's better than the rest. But I think in this situation, I think Kasanganay is way better. I think Kasanganay keeps this fight standing. And I think Impa Kasanganay, in his first PFL season, he should have never been cut from the UFC in the first place. But up 2 weight classes at 205 pounds, I think Kasanganay is going to the World Championship fight. Impa Kasanganay, second round TKO, put him in the championship fight. All right, next up, which was originally scheduled to be Gabriel Braga versus Movlid Hablaev. It is now Braga versus Chris Wade. Wade has found himself as the number 5 seed. He's put himself in a spot where he is back in the playoffs. Hablaev I believe is out due to injury, what is new. But now Braga, who is 11-0, coming off back-to-back wins in the PFL, win over fellow playoff fighter in Jesus Pinedo, and Marlon Moraes, who, again, Moraes is Moraes at this point. But Braga is 2-0 in the PFL, 3-0 if you count the Challenger Series, 11-0 professionally. He gets Chris Wade, who gets another shot in the postseason after losing to Brendan Loughnane in the playoffs last year as number 1 seed. He comes back into 2023, drops the fight to the runner-up in 2022 in Bubba Jenkins, but then submits Hyoji Kudo in the first round. Originally, Wade was not supposed to be in the playoffs. However, with Movlid Hablaev dropping out, Wade was the 5 seed. He still got his 6 points. Didn't have better, Pinedo got in because they both had 6 points, but Pinedo got to finish before Wade did, so that's how Pinedo got in. However, Wade was the 5 seed. He had more points than Brendan Loughnane, who only had 5 with a second round knockout victory over Marlon Moraes. So Chris Wade is in the playoffs. He will get the fight with Gabriel Braga. Now for Wade, again, this guy who has a storied PFL career. He's been here since the very beginning. He lost to Natan Schultz the first time around in 2018. Then he came back in 2019, lost to Jaguar Paw in the playoffs. Then in 2021, he came back, lost to Movlid Hablaev in the championship fight. 2022, got all the way to the semifinals, lost to Brendan Loughnane. He has made the playoffs every single year in the PFL, and he does it again. Can he beat Gabriel Braga? I think the answer is yes. I don't think Braga is ready for this just yet. He fought a Jesus Pinedo who's young in his career, a guy like Braga, and he beat a washed-up Marlon Moraes who does not have a chin anymore. Chris Wade, this is the fight for him to win. I think Wade's able to outstrike Braga. I think he's able to outgrapple Braga. And I think Chris Wade, being the 5 seed, has punched his ticket to the World Championship fight. You know he's looking for revenge against Bubba Jenkins, but I think Chris Wade gets into the postseason, or he's now in the postseason, and I think he goes out there, and I think he does put himself in a spot to fight for $1 million yet again. Wade wins in the playoffs. Give me Wade versus the winner of Pinedo and Jenkins. But again, Chris Wade wins by unanimous decision. Okay, on to our light heavyweight semifinal. The winner will fight Impa Kasanganay. We've got Josh Silveira versus Ty Flores. This feels like an easy pick. We're going to go with Josh Silveira. Ty Flores is a guy who fought on the Contender Series. That's how I became familiar with Flores when he lost to Dustin Jacoby. Since then, won two straight fights. Dropped a fight, then won 2 more. Got a shot in the PFL. Beat Delon Monte by unanimous decision. And the light heavyweight division was absolutely gutted this year because everyone tested positive for roids. Looking at you, Wilkinson. looking at you, Jotko, looking at all these guys, Mohamed Fakrdine, there's one other guy, the guy who fought Jotko, the Irish guy, Will Fleury, I think, yeah. Flores beat Stan Spot in his last one by unanimous decision. He missed weight in that fight, but still had 5 points. That's why he is under Kasanganay, because Kasanganay got a finish. Flores, with 2 decisions plus the weight miss, puts him at the 4th seed and gives him probably the toughest matchup at 205 pounds. Now, I think Kasanganay Silveira is a crazy fight because I think that fight is going to, I mean, obviously, okay, I think Silveira is going to win, so I think that fight's going to determine the winner of this entire season. But I think that's an incredible fight. It can go a lot of ways. I think Silveira, honestly, is a better version of Martin Hamlet, who's got a slightly better ground game and better wrestling and slightly better and way better striking. But you get Silveira and Flores here. I think Josh Silveira absolutely dominates. Now, Silveira won his last fight. He beat Dylan Monte, but Monte had the knee injury, so that sucks, but still, Silveira got 6 points in that fight. Then he got 6 points in the Sam K fight where he finished him with the rear naked choke in the first. So he's got 12 points. Now he gets the Ty Flores fight. This is a guy who's been undefeated so far. His only loss being to Omar Yakhmedov back in 2022 in the playoffs. He lost a fight to him by unanimous decision. How did Silveira get to the playoffs? Well, he finished Martin Hamlin in the first round, knocked him out, got 6 points, made his way into the PFL playoffs. This guy's good. Silveira, again, his grappling's great. His striking's getting better. All around, Silveira's a great fighter, great wrestling. Obviously, the son of Conan Silveira, the ATT coach. He's the head coach. I believe he's the head coach at ATT still. Silveira, great fighter all around. He's a better fighter in this fight. He's going to outstrike Ty Flores, and I think he's going to finish him early. First round knockout for Josh Silveira. I know we're not counting points anymore, but if we were, 18 points for Josh Silveira going in the championship fight against Impa Kasanganay. On to our main event in the featherweight division. We have got Bubba Badman Jenkins taking on Jesus Pinedo. I don't know why this is playing in the background. Hold on. Okay, you can't hear it, but it's just an ad on Tapology's playing. It's kind of annoying. However, we've got Bubba Jenkins and Jesus Pinedo now. For Bubba Jenkins, 2-0 in 2023. Back-to-back wins over Chris Wade and Sung Bin Jo in his last fight. Smith Sung Bin Jo in the first round needed the finish actually to make the playoffs. Well, he would have got back in because, of course, of the injury to Hablayev. But still, Jenkins, basically the difference for him in that fight against Sung Bin Jo, either he doesn't get the finish and doesn't make the playoffs, or he gets a finish and he's the 1 seed. It was a crazy turn of events for Jenkins. Really glad he got the first round sub. Now he's in the playoffs. But I mean, this regular season for Jenkins couldn't ask for any better. Gets Chris Wade, beats him. Gets Sung Bin Jo, finishes him in the first round. Now he gets a guy in Jesus Pinedo who is good, but I think Jenkins is way better. I think he is. Now, I was skeptical. I was thinking of taking Jenkins by first round submission, because I think this fight's going to be really similar to the Hoji Kudo fight last year in the playoffs. But, okay, Pinedo is decent. However, I think he just got really lucky against Loughnane. I think Loughnane was not taking him seriously. I think Loughnane was looking ahead because Loughnane thought he was going to be fighting Hablayev because that was likely the fight next. Now, it would have been Chris Wade eventually. But still, I thought that Loughnane was really thinking, ahead. Thought he had Mauldin lead in his next fight. That's the fight he's always wanted because he lost it the first time around. Now, of course, the fight never happened. But I think he was really overlooking Pinedo, and Pinedo took advantage and knocked him out in the first 94 seconds. Huge finish for Pinedo with a big hammer fist when it got to the ground. You can't look at Pinedo's first fight. He did lose to Gabriel Braga. Braga is good, but again, Pinedo lost to John McDessie in the UFC. He went 1-1 in the UFC. The one win being Devin Powell. I just don't think Pinedo's all that great. I think again I think he's better than Hyoji Kudo, but he reminds me of Hyoji Kudo. I don't think Pinedo's going to have the wrestling to deal with Bubba Jenkins. Bubba Jenkins is going to take him down. I think he's going to maul him. That's how I think this fight's going to go. I don't think it's going to be competitive down there. On the feet, I think, Pinedo's a better striker. But is Bubba Jenkins going to mess around on the feet with Jesus Pinedo? No, he's not. Jenkins is not going to play around here. Bubba Jenkins is going to take him down at will. It's not going to be close. Again, it is going to be all groundwork for Bubba Jenkins. I don't think it's a competitive fight. I think it's a complete wipeout. I'll be honest with you. I think it is. Jenkins by decision, 30-26. If he doesn't get the submission early, I think it's just going to be all wrestling because I don't think Pinedo's going to be able to deal with this. By far, Bubba Jenkins is the best guy Pinedo has fought in terms of wrestling. I know you can make the case Loughnane is better, but Loughnane just had a bad fight. I think Jenkins wins, and I think now our final fights, our championship fights. The featherweight division, we've got Bubba Jenkins taking on Chris Wade, the rematch of the first fight in the regular season this year, and we've got Kasanganay taking on Josh Silveira for the light heavyweight championship. Now, folks, next week we'll be back for PFL 8. We have got another playoff card from Madison Square Garden. Well, it's the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden. We've got some changes to that card. Your playoff fights, originally supposed to be Hernan Ferreira and Marcelo Nunes. Nunes dropped out. We will now have Hernan Ferreira versus Maurice Green in your main event. That's the main event. Co-main event, Larissa Pacheco taking on Elena Kolesnik. It is the trilogy fight because they keep on fighting. Yeah. Okay. And then also we have got Dennis Goltsov taking on Jordan Heiderman. This is the 1-4 matchup, and a really good fight and probably the best fight on the card. Don't know why that's not main eventing, because Heiderman's undefeated. And then you got Marina Mohatina versus Amber Leibrock. Who cares? Larissa Pacheco's winning at featherweight. And then in 2 weeks, we've got PFL 9. Really excited for that card. Probably the best card that they have saved up. The playoff fights, my goodness, 155 and 170. Your main event, Clay Collard taking on Shane Burgos. Oliver Aben Mercier versus Bruno Miranda in the co-main event. Magomed Karamov taking on Magomed Umlatov in the welterweight division. And then Carlos Leal rematches Sadabusi. That's going to be fun. So, folks, you're not going to want to miss what's coming up here with the PFL. We've got a lot in store. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and stay tuned to the channel. Again, PFL coming every single week for the next 3 weeks. So, folks, thank you for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba forever.